You were never too sensitive. You were simply placed in environments that punished depth, awareness, and emotional intelligence, and over time that made you believe something was wrong with you. In this video, you will understand why certain jobs drain you while others feel strangely natural. You will learn where your sensitivity stops being a weakness and starts becoming quiet strength. And you will finally see why the right work environment can change not only how you perform, but how you feel about yourself. You notice things others miss: tones of voice, small shifts in mood, unspoken tension in a room. That is why roles that revolve around constant pressure, competition, or emotional aggression slowly exhaust you. Not because you are weak, but because your nervous system is always working overtime. And here is the first place where highly sensitive people often feel unexpectedly comfortable. Work that involves one-on-one depth instead of constant group dynamics. Think of roles like coaching, counseling, mentoring, or even private teaching. In these settings, the pace is slower. Conversations have meaning. You are not forced to perform socially all day long. A person comes to you with confusion or pain, and you are allowed to listen fully. You ask careful questions. You notice what they cannot articulate. That is why people often feel seen around you without knowing why. And when you are in this type of work, you stop feeling unnecessary, because your presence clearly matters. And here you start to notice another detail. Highly sensitive people often thrive in creative professions, not because of talent alone, but because creativity allows emotional processing. Writing, design, illustration, music production, photography, video editing. These are not loud environments. You work in silence or with sound you choose. You turn internal experiences into something tangible. A designer who senses imbalance instantly sees what feels off. A writer translates emotions others avoid. A photographer notices subtle expressions others overlook. This is why, in creative work, you finally feel aligned instead of constantly overstimulated. When this is missing, you start to feel invisible, like your inner world has no place to go. But this is only part of the picture. Another space where sensitive people feel safe is structured, calm, analytical work. This surprises many. Data analysis, research, quality control, documentation, editing, archiving. These jobs do not require emotional exposure all day long. Expectations are clear. Rules are predictable. You can focus deeply without being interrupted every 5 minutes. Your nervous system relaxes when chaos is removed. And because you naturally double-check details, mistakes bother you more than they bother others. That is why people often trust your work, even if they don't openly say it. Without this structure, you start doubting yourself, feeling like you are constantly behind or failing at something invisible. The situation becomes more complicated when we talk about helping professions that involve care, but not constant emotional chaos. Jobs like occupational therapy, speech therapy, animal care, rehabilitation support, library work, or wellness-oriented roles. These environments usually value gentleness, patience, and consistency. You are not expected to dominate. You are expected to notice. And that is where your sensitivity becomes reliability. When you are denied this kind of environment, you slowly internalize the idea that you are not tough enough, even though toughness was never the point. And then there is remote work. Highly sensitive people often feel an immediate sense of relief when they work from home. Not because they are antisocial, but because they regain control over stimulation. No forced small talk. No open offices. No constant emotional scanning of co-workers. You can regulate light, sound, pace. Roles like remote project coordination, content management, writing, UX research, customer support in calm niches. These allow you to perform without emotional depletion. When this option is unavailable, you may start associating work itself with anxiety, even if the job is technically good. And here is the deeper truth most people never tell you. Highly sensitive people do not struggle because they lack resilience. They struggle because they are placed in environments that reward emotional numbness. When you are forced into aggressive sales, loud leadership cultures, constant multitasking, or unpredictable authority figures, your system stays in survival mode. Over time, this creates self-doubt, people-pleasing, and chronic exhaustion. You start asking, why can everyone else handle this but me? The answer is simple. They are not processing the same amount of information you are. When you begin to understand this, something shifts. You stop trying to fix your sensitivity. You start protecting it. You realize that the right job does not demand that you become someone else. It allows you to finally be yourself without punishment. And this understanding is where real confidence begins. Not loud, not aggressive, but unshakable. When you are ready, we will continue, because there are still important patterns you haven't noticed yet. You begin to see another pattern once you stop blaming yourself. Highly sensitive people often feel most stable in roles where expectations are human, not performative. Jobs where you are not constantly evaluated by volume, speed, or dominance, but by consistency, accuracy, and presence. This is why administrative roles in calm environments, ethical organizations, or mission-driven institutions often feel surprisingly grounding. You are not pressured to compete. You are trusted to maintain order. And because you naturally anticipate problems before they happen, your value shows quietly over time. When this is missing, you start feeling replaceable, even when you are not. And then there is the role of meaning. Sensitive people rarely burn out because of workload alone. They burn out because the work feels empty. That is why positions connected to values, nonprofits, education, mental health, sustainability, community work, often feel safer, even if they are not easier. You are willing to give energy when it aligns with something real. You can tolerate effort when it has purpose. Without meaning, even a high salary cannot compensate for the internal numbness that slowly grows. That is why you may feel ungrateful for jobs others envy, because something essential is missing. But this is not talked about enough. Highly sensitive people also feel comfortable in behind-the-scenes roles. You do not need to be the face. You do not crave attention. You often prefer to support systems, people, or processes quietly. Editors, coordinators, planners, researchers, technical writers, operations specialists. These roles reward foresight instead of charisma. You notice weak points before they collapse. You prevent crises rather than creating drama. And when this ability is ignored, you start questioning your relevance, because your best work is invisible by nature. The situation becomes even clearer when you look at what drains you the fastest. Fast-paced environments with unclear hierarchies, emotional unpredictability, and constant social performance exhaust you deeply. Not because you lack skill, but because you are forced to stay alert every second. You read everyone's mood. You sense unspoken conflicts. You adjust yourself constantly. Over time, this creates anxiety, self-silencing, and the belief that you are too much or not enough at the same time. In truth, your system is simply overloaded. And here is the insight most people miss. Highly sensitive people do not need to become tougher. They need to become more selective. Your strength is not endurance, it is perception. When placed correctly, you become deeply competent, emotionally stable, and quietly confident. When misplaced, you shrink, doubt yourself, and disappear emotionally. This is why the right job feels like relief, not excitement. Calm, not adrenaline. Safety, not pressure. You stop bracing yourself. You stop scanning for danger. You finally have space to think, feel, and exist without apology. And when you understand these mechanisms, your life truly changes. You stop chasing approval from systems that were never designed for you. You stop forcing yourself into roles that reward emotional numbness. You begin choosing environments that respect your nervous system instead of exploiting it. You cannot change how deeply you feel, but you can change where you place that depth. And that, quietly, steadily, is real power.